Welcome everyone to KSK Land's Inspiring Change Tea and Talk in conjunction with International Women's Day. On the panel today we have Soo Shea Pin, Managing Director of Halcyon Days, co-founder of Feith. Can we please have you come sit here, Pete? Heidy Quah, founder for Refuge for the Refugees. Hi, Heidi. And Joanne Kua, CEO of KSK Group and the Managing Director of KSK Land. Good evening, ladies. How are you? Good afternoon. Tell me, what did you all do for International Women's Day before we get started, Joanne? Were you busy conquering the world?
At work, with many meetings. But also in our office on International Women's Day, we celebrated by giving everybody chocolates, male and female, all chocolates for
All of
everyone,
them.
and celebrating the power of all of us being together.
Fantastic. Just so you know, Joanne founded KSK Land as a future-forward player in the international real estate scene with a focus on lifestyle, tech, and placemaking underpinned by sustainability. Its maiden development, 8 Conley, is an integrated mixed-use development at the heart of Kuala Lumpur, comprising 5-star Kempinski Hotel, lifestyle retail quarters, and branded residences called U8. Is that how I pronounce it? Yeah. Serviced by Kempinski and designed by Steve Leong and U Tower A and Kelly Hoppen for U Tower B. So can we have a big round of applause for Joanne? Soo Shea Pin, her daughters Wen Fei and Wen Lee, describes Shea Pin as a barrister, entrepreneur, and a mother. And they are very super proud to call her mom and a constant inspiration. So big round of applause for Shea Pin. And Heidy Quah here is a 27-year-old young human rights activist, founded Refuge for the Refugees at the tender age of 18. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So if you guys have any questions for our ladies later, please don't forget to put up your hands and we'll bring a microphone to you and you can be, we're more than happy to accept any of your questions. And if you are taking pictures, please do tag at KSK Land and at 8 Conley. And I also like to invite, for those of you who are watching Zoom right now, to send us any questions you have for the panel. So ladies, we've heard it all before. The only constant is change, and there's no escaping change in our lives. What significant changes have you witnessed in yourself in the last couple of years, Shea Pin?
Well, last 2 years, as we all know, have been really remarkable. Very difficult, but at the same time, very inspiring. We have seen people have done amazing job to help others. We have also seen people who have passed, and we are all still here. So I feel that while the changes were very tough, we also have seen the kindest part of human being, and we have also seen the strongest bit, and the saddest bit. So I think we should realize that these changes has brought us a new life in a way, right? That we may not realize and we may not even wanted it, but somehow, right, we are part of this change, a big change that we never thought we would go through. So in some way, I'm thankful of the pandemic, but at the same time, we know that has been a really challenging time. So.
Challenging indeed. Thank you for that. What about you, Joanne?
A little bit more personal for me. I think it's, for me, change is constant. It's something that we always say at KSK. For me, KSK is an extension of also who I am as a person, the culture that we have. And so for me, really, I think one of the most significant changes is this level of personal growth that I constantly want to have for myself. It's like a personal journey for myself. And in that, one of the things, over the last couple of years that I really learned about myself is how to be really fully present with people. And I think that, sometimes, a lot of times, these things sound really small or really superficial or something that's very tiny, right? But imagine if you are in a room, whether it's at work or whether you're really with your friends and family and you're fully present. and that energy that you feel from people and that energy that you feel from the room, the things and the stories that you hear when somebody's actually telling you something, and being able to be present and really reflecting on that, to me, that's a lot of power in that. And so I always like to learn from a lot of people, a lot of the stories that they share. And I always reflect on what they share with me. And that's how, I always tell myself to be humble and always continue to be very self-aware. And that's the way I learn. Yeah.
Did you go through a special course to learn this or what? Because people take a lifetime to learn how to be present. And
I know, right?
Yeah.
A little secret as CEOs, right? We're extremely, I would like to think a lot of CEOs are very competitive people. And so we're also very competitive with ourselves. And I'm very privileged to have a lot of also CEOs around me. And, we like to share our stories with each other. And people like that actually keep us grounded. They say, there's a lot of power in learning and in your self-growth.
Yeah.
And it's also in things that actually people tell you. And sometimes people think, is that like some form of criticism? But to me, it's just a story. It's what you do with that story and that power that you have that to make yourself better. So yeah, I mean, it's not something that you wake up one morning and just discover like magic or a pill that you can take. But I think it's about wisdom and, the people that you have in your life that guides you and being able to share that with you. Yeah.
Very inspiring. Thank you for that. Heidi, how has your priorities changed from when you first started?
Yeah, I think so when I first started, I was very young, constantly gunning for growth, looking constantly, really being focused about the numbers that we were reaching. I think these days I find myself thinking a lot more about the quality of our work and the quality of our impact. And really also, so now I'm 10 years into the work, so I've really been learning to pace myself better as well, realizing that, hey, it's not just a 10-year journey. I'm hoping to be in this for many, many more years to come, and I can't possibly sustain myself if I'll just be sprinting towards the end goal, right? Because a lot of times for important work to take place, for policy change to take place, it takes a lot of patience. And so, yeah, I think I've been really learning to grow in patience as well, and learning to pace myself so that I can sustainably continue on with the work.
Okay, but when you first started out, was it a struggle for you? Was it difficult for you?
Yes, it was a struggle. I mean, I was 18, still really learning to be an adult and care for myself. But also, I think being so young and being a female presented many challenges, right? It was constantly having to speak loud enough, to be good enough, to be taken seriously. It is still a challenge now, but I think it's gotten slightly easier over the years when I've learned to be consistent with my values and things that I'm passionate about.
Okay, thank you. Shea Pin, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently when you were first starting out as an entrepreneur?
Yes.
Without hesitation.
I think, when you're born as a girl, right, it was almost like you're programmed, you got to be a good girl, get the best grades in primary school. Now there's also a struggle of going to the best school. But my time, no, just go to a Chinese school. You're Chinese, you're Malay, go to a Malay school, that kind of thing. So I went to a Chinese school and then the secondary Chinese school as well. So there was very set direction. You had to be a good girl, behave yourself, cut your hair short, a button all the way up here, no color on the fingers. It's a totally very traditional world. When I look back, I think I miss that too. I think there was a lot of discipline which is not being applied to anymore, unfortunately. I think the discipline helped me a lot to stick to my direction. But as I grew older and I became a lawyer and I practiced law for 20 years, I started to realize that no, it just doesn't have to be so monotonous, just go with that. There's direction, new ways of thinking, new people to meet. So as I started to travel more worldwide as well, I realized that my wishes and my dreams grew bigger. But then there was also this fear of not moving out, that you should stick to the job, it's safe for you, you can pay all your bills, and so on. It's always, especially for a girl, and it's like, next thing you should do is just find a man and get married. And after that, after married, you must have kids, So I think it's always like next and next and next. So as I started practicing as a lawyer, and I've met a lot of entrepreneurs who, some of them went to kindergarten only and became billionaire. Yeah, and I started to feel that I don't really have to work like this. I don't have to. And sometimes when I look at them, they didn't look smarter than me. And I was like, why is he so, successful? And I'm advising him. So I started to think that I can change my direction. So as soon as I started to change my direction, I was already 40, moving from legal practice to fashion world. I started to feel the excitement of the new world, new people, new ideas, new conversation. The more I venture out, the more exciting it becomes. But having said that, nothing is easy in life, So you must always be prepared for the challenges as well. A lot of people look at the facade and say, wow, Joanne, you're so successful, CEO of KSK. But I'm sure, a lot of challenges, So I think a lot of people want to be different, but they're not prepared to take the challenges. So if you do decide to change your life, there will be a lot of challenges. So, but life is like that. Do you take a challenge or do you not? If you don't do it, that's it. That's one life, So I keep thinking, as I get older, I actually have more dreams. Yeah. And it's exciting like that, right? Because when we were young, we were very stuck with responsibilities, being a mother, being a wife. But as I get older, I actually feel more free to explore my dreams that I had not. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Heidi, what are some of the high points you've experienced during this journey with the refugees? Because it's so important to celebrate the success no matter how little along the way.
Yeah. Wow, so many. I think one of the more significant ones that I can think about was 2-3 years ago, there was this thing called the Cessation policy, basically a policy formed by the UN to bring all refugees back to Myanmar because it's supposedly safer there. When we spoke to the folks on the ground, we realized that that's not the case. There was still a lot of unrest, and I'm sure this year itself we've read the unrest that still happens in Myanmar until today. So a bunch of us formed a campaign called the Chin Up Project, basically humanizing the voices of Chin refugees here in Malaysia and across the globe, getting people to understand why it's not safe for them to go back yet. The campaign ran for a couple of months, only for the UN to pick it up and say, like, you know what, we've changed our mind, we're reversing this policy altogether. I think that was really profound because it was a policy that was so big. We didn't think that, we could reverse the policy, but that happened. But when I think about, things that are closest to the ground, I think about, so we work with refugee women who often are SGBV survivors. SGBV survivors are sexual gender-based violence survivors. And a lot of times, they're so busy caring for your children that they don't have time to care for themselves. Over the past 2 years, we've seen these women who have once gone through extremely bad, violence in so many ways, now take steps forward to lead their communities and to transform their communities. And I think that constantly reminds me of, like, hey, why I do what I do, right? Even closer to home, I teach at a refugee school. A student of mine whom I taught 10 years ago, when she was just 14 years old, today she's come a full cycle, and she's now a volunteer support coordinator at a shelter for victims of domestic abuse. And I think just seeing the community find their voice and come a full cycle to learn to be advocates for other people brings me so much joy. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Joanne, how do you handle challenges, and what advice would you give someone who is on the cusp of change or is navigating challenges?
I always feel that at these talks I get the hardest questions. I think it's one and the same. I think it's a story that I'll share. I always view challenges as opportunities. I think that, I like what Shapin said, right? Are you willing to take a challenge or not? And I think that question, it's really about the mindset, right? You can think of a challenge as something that is so hard, and you look at it and you think, oh, why do I have to do this? Or you can look at the challenge and it's just a matter of fact. And if you look at it objectively and we say, what should we do about this? We really, every day I'm going through challenges, like what Shapin says, to go through something that you're excited about or something that you're passionate about. If you want something to change or if you want to pioneer something, you're obviously going to meet a lot of challenges. But you could think of it as an excitement, something that's positive, because anything that is in your power, when you change it, it's always an opportunity. In these 2 years, when there's a crisis, people say it's a crisis, but there's a Chinese saying that says that every crisis presents an opportunity. Yeah. And it's really how you view it. So for me, every time when we look at a challenge, I just say, okay, it's a challenge. It's like a problem statement or like a hypothesis to me. And I just look at it as matter of fact and say, okay, what do we do with this? How do we solve this? Is there an opportunity, or can I think out of the box? And I think one of the most important things is to understand that you don't have to do this alone. It's not about you alone. It's about the power that you have to say, hey, let's do it together. And that is something whether you want to do it or not with other people. So that's something that one, I think people should understand. And for me, every time when we go through a challenge, actually in KSK, we always say, when something is a little bit constant, when nothing's really moving, okay, I think the team knows this. They call me the pot stirrer, because every time when I see something's already a little bit, okay, we've got it done now, it's doing well, let's do something a little bit more different. Let's push it a little bit again. Let's try to do a little bit more. It's not because of greed, but I think it's because of we want to understand what else can we do and what can we do differently. If we think that we do something well, can we do it better? And I think this courage is very important. The fact that if you have courage, you're probably 50% there. But it comes with a lot of hard work. I think it comes with a lot of humility. And then I think anybody in the room will be able to meet the challenge, actually.
And where do you find this courage from?
The understanding that you learn every day, whether or not you succeed or whether or not you fail. Because, a lot of people are very afraid of failures. But failure is just a label. I think if you look at it and you say, look, how bad are you going to fail? Are you going to fail alone? But failure is a learning. At KSK, we have something called the Failure Festival. We actually celebrate failures. What
does it entail?
Okay, so we had a competition about 2 years ago, and we asked the whole company, come out with ideas for us, how should we be celebrating failure festivals? So every day we're always trying to hack a problem or something new, and we said, okay, every failure, it's like a ticket. So I think the winning team, and we vote in the company, and so one of the teams won. So their idea was, every failure, it's like an apple, because apple is the symbol for knowledge. And then you hang this failure apple on a tree. Well, okay, we don't have a tree because we're all in lockdown, so we had to do it digitally. And then every month, the whole company, we vote for the 5 most interesting failure stories. It could be something small, it could be something big. And then at the end of the year, we gather the 12 winners, and then we celebrate the grand prize. And then it's, Grab vouchers, and then they celebrate together, just talking about how this is, and then everybody has an interesting tagline of what this failure could be, and we laugh about it. But I think what's really important about it is, if you think about it as a failure festival, and there's a positive emotion that's actually coming out from it, and then people are just unafraid to learn. And that sticks with you, because even if someone else tells you about your failure, there's nothing in you telling yourself, this is a failure and it's positive and you get to learn from it. And I think that when you get that, I mean, we are very quick to learn from successes all the time. We're also very, very quick to point out a lot of failures. But what we don't want to do is when there is a failure, we don't have that bravery to learn from it. We tend to say, okay, this is it and it's done. Let's not talk about it anymore. But for me, even personally, I think over the course of the years, I mean, as an investment banker, I was in the middle of the Lehman Brothers crisis, right? And I thought I would never be the person I am today if it's not for that. I would not have the courage to start KSK Land. I would not be able to learn from that and have that courage to do what I do today. So I think the best learnings actually come from failures more than actually successes.
Wow, well said. We will remember that for sure. Okay, Shapin, how do you inspire yourself to change, and how do you inspire others to change their lives?
Truth is, I need to be inspired every day. So I do go to, I talk to people that I, admire. That also YouTube, there's a lot in YouTube that you can learn from free of charge, really. So during the pandemic, especially first year, it was so unpredictable. We were not sure when it was going, what is going to happen. What is this pandemic anyway? Whenever there's a variant, we got all panic. So I was looking for inspiration. Then Oprah Winfrey is very much what I've been going to for inspiration. So it's like if I used to watch her show every Sunday and I would feel really good on Monday. And then she stopped her show. I was like, now what am I going to do, So thank God for YouTube that I have been going to YouTube. But then I realized that Oprah is not good enough anymore. I needed more and stronger inspiration. So I started to step up and look for new, inspirational stories. And to my surprise, it's all over. It's everywhere, and a lot of them are actually women. Quite often, maybe we can connect with a women's, problem or success or failure better. So I think that helped me a lot to get. But I really talk to a lot of people I admire. Doesn't matter about age. Also doesn't matter about sex. It can be, guy or female or otherwise, So I realized that talking made me go back and realize, oh, wow, I didn't think I could do that. Like today, celebrating failure. That's new to me.
Yeah.
So I think looking for inspiration that way, and don't be shy to ask. There's also something I learned from Oprah, is that if you don't ask, you never know what you will get. So when I was struggling with, something in my business, and I would start to think, who am I going to ask? What am I going to ask? So I would call people and say, hey, after MCO3, you want to work with me? You want to sponsor my event? And so on, And to my surprise, I had amazing sponsorship from, international party. And I always felt like, I'm a small trader. I cannot get a big sponsorship. Again, it's not true. Quite often when you are very big and people feel like, oh, you have everything, you don't need me, But me, the small trader, I need them. And they also realize that maybe small trader, you work harder because you're small. Then I realized that it's actually good to be small. Small is beautiful. But of course, all of us aspire to be bigger. Yeah. So I think in terms of inspiring other people, I would listen to them. Quite often I go to events and they will come to me and say, oh, I really admire what you do. And it was like, you do? I'm struggling actually, People always say that, you look so good, Elaine, you're not struggling, but you're struggling in your own way. So I think that's another aspect of life, is that we always look at somebody as a success symbol, like, Tati Winnie Lu, big, cut above, all the so many years of success. But I'm sure, she has gone through a lot of challenges too. You see, so I think by sharing, you're already inspiring people. And I get more and more of that now. People coming to me on Facebook, Instagram, wanting to share the story. But I'm always totally impressed by Heidi. At the age of 18, she was inspired to help other people, the refugees. Refugees could never pay her back. These are people who needed her to survive just a simple life. So I really admire that aspect of helping people. So many times I just feel very small. But I still think while being small, you can still inspire people.
Well, I think you inspire a lot of people, Shea Pin.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Heidi? How do you inspire yourself to change, and how do you inspire others to change their lives?
Yeah. I mean, similar to so many of us, I think I am often in need of inspiration as well. And I think how I get my inspiration is just seeing people that have gone before me. And this doesn't really, need to be about status or how much you've achieved. A lot of my inspiration comes from the communities that I work with directly, because these are people that have that were literally in situations having to choose between life or death, having to flee war-torn countries. But today they're here and making do and giving their best every day and choosing life every single day. And I think that to me is a huge source of inspiration, because there's so many days, honestly, where I feel like giving up, where I feel that the work is so hard, where I feel that I don't know if I can continue on. But then I go on ground and I meet mothers who work 22 hours, throughout the night to care for their kids, to cook for their families, to earn a little bit of income just to get through, not even the week, just to get through tomorrow. And despite, the persecution that they face till this very day, they take on the next day like a champion. They wake up and they give their best. And I think that to me really inspires me, because it's realizing that, despite having so little, you can give so much. When I think generosity is a really important value and trait. It's something that I hope to role model and I hope to be even better at. When I think about generosity, I used to think that I would kind of experience it from people that have it all. But what I've come to really realize is that it's the community that literally have nothing, but that's where they are the most generous. So I think I draw so much of my inspiration from the community that I serve with, only because that's the closest proximity, but also just women that have paved the way, right? That have shown us, not just women, right, but people that have paved the way, that have shown us again and again that life can be hard, that can be so many challenges, but the most important thing is waking up and showing up, right? Showing up is part of the process. Whether or not you can take the 10 things off your checklist is another thing, but showing up and just being present, like what Joanne said, is where I draw my inspiration from. In terms of how I inspire people, honestly, I find it a struggle, but what I've learned is to show up, and to role model. I was just sharing with someone before the panel happened. I used to think that inspiring people means sitting on my high horse and talking about values that are important to me and going like, we must believe in, refugee rights, or we all need to be kind. But I realized that a lot of times all of us can inspire people just by showing up and role modeling values that are important to us, and people around us will catch on to that. Yeah.
Wow, thank you for that. Joanne, what about you? Who inspires you?
Actually, people are very much like Shea Pin and Heidi. It's actually people who are around us. At work, actually, the team inspires me all the time. I know sometimes when they look at me, they run away as well, because they can't. When I go on a holiday and then I come back and then they look at me, they're like, she's going to say something to us and ask us to do something different again today. What is it? What do you want to say to us now? What is this idea that you have? But in all honesty, I think at work they keep me going, because whatever that I do today, if I have to do it alone, I wouldn't do it. I think I'll only do it if I have a people who are as excited to do it with me, because I think this energy of people wanting to continue to wake up every morning to want to do something and finding their own purpose is very important. And I always think of myself and KSK as a platform and a vessel. A vessel where, okay, this is my passion, this is what I want to do, this is the platform that I give. But I also tell the team that, hey, this is whatever you do every day, big or small, that's the legacy that you live for yourself, not for me. Because We don't make, for example, A Conlay. It's not my project, it's the project for all of them. And every day, you know, when it's ready, for example, with my site engineers, you know, I ask one of my site engineers, why are you working on this project for so long with us? And he says, you know, I want to tell my grandkids one day when we're driving by Jalan Conlay that your grandpa built that. And I think that it's stories like that, when people tell me that, that actually inspires me. You know, it gives me that energy to keep going, right? Because there's always this, like what everybody says, you know, it's always like this constant struggle up and down this emotional highway that everybody goes through, right? And personally, it's really the people who I love. It's all your friends and your family that tells you, you know, okay, you know, you're doing this, you know, and well done, you know, keep going, you know. I think that everybody needs that little bit of validation sometimes, you know, but it's also important to know that we're validating ourselves. And also important to know that we are our constant inspiration for ourselves, you know. Ideas, plenty, you know, whenever I travel, the people who I meet, you know, for example, in A Conlay, when we first started ideating the development, you know, I met with all these amazing people like Kelly Hoppen and Steve Leong and Pork, you know, who's, you know, one of my favorites in landscape design, Hood Bakar, and imagine all of them in a room. Like I said, being humble, because they're so big in design, in what they do. But they are humble enough to actually come together in a room, sit together, respect each other for each other's work, and just say, look, I respect your design, you respect my design, but we're here for A Conlay. Let's make this happen. You know, being able to learn from these people, it's a constant inspiration, and that's the reason why I love what I do, because what I do allows me to meet a lot of interesting people, and they are all inspirations to my work. Yeah.
Wow. Very, very inspiring. I mean, to have all of them sit together in one room and, you know, to be part of that, you know, I mean, I'll be simply in awe.
Not so much
Yay!
of traveling out, but also for people to come in. We do need the tourists, we do need the foreigners. We can't survive on our own. So yes, but I also hope what I understand from my friends who are in the medical field is that although the numbers look scary for COVID cases now, but actually everything is looking very positive. So be positive, go out and support and enjoy yourself. Don't be just looking at the figures, you know. So I think that is something to look forward to.
Wonderful. Thank you. Borders opening. Yay, we can travel again. Okay, we've got some questions from our Zoom audience. This is from Nazira. With this year's IWD theme being about hashtag break the bias, do you think women in Malaysia still experience biasness in the workplace? And how can female leaders such as yourselves be the voice to this change? Who would like to answer that? Joanne?
As I said, the
Since
difficult
you-
questions.
Yeah.
I presume so. You know, someone once told me recently, I never thought about it that way, that KSK is actually a very feminine company. I didn't think about that actually, because every time someone walks in through our door, we always think of that as an individual. And really looking at you as an individual and who you are, who is your personality, and whether you have the same values as we do. And that to me actually is extremely important, rather than the gender that you have, you know, because I think that forms an identity, and that's very, very strong. And we love diversity because, like I said earlier, you know, we were talking about challenges, right? How do you actually think out of the box if you don't celebrate diversity, you know, because no one's perfect and everybody has their strengths and challenges and weaknesses. But if you put everybody's strengths together, you probably find the perfect person. And that's, I think, that's what's important. So yeah, I think there is. But again, I think you can't control what other people do. But you can control your decisions and your actions. And if you are in a place where people are being biased, then you have the power to just say, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to be in this environment. You can walk out the door anytime and find a community that loves you for who you are and who you want to be, and allow and support you for who you want to be. And I think that that's what we can do. You know, we don't have to control what other people want to do, but we can control our own actions. As a leader, I think that we always need to constantly remind ourselves that, you know, people are important, and that we have that responsibility to make sure that people are always constantly growing, that their wellness are always taken care of, that they always feel supported for what they want to do. And that's the most that we can do. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. And thank you, Nazira, for your question. I feel like I'm in a Miss Malaysia pageant. Like this question. Heidy, it's not easy standing up for refugees in this country. How do you rise above all the noise and negativity?
Yeah. I think how I approach it is really making sure that I am certain of what my convictions are. I'll tell you very honestly that the past 2 years has been one of the toughest climates to work with. Given the lockdown, given the rise of COVID cases, people were being extremely xenophobic. That coupled with just targeted responses from authorities as well, kind of locking down on the refugee community, speculations that the refugee and migrant community are people that spread the virus, sending out threats saying that if you work with the refugee community, if you are a house owner and they rent from you, if you hire the refugee community, you get fined. So that has been really tough. But I think what keeps me focused is remembering my why and being sure about my convictions. And I always tell people that we have to be consistent with our convictions, not just our convictions, but our values and our principles, because it can get very noisy. And the more important the work is, the noisier it will get. But if you remain consistent with your convictions and your values, that will keep you grounded.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you, Diane, for your question. This is for Joanne from May Tan. Being in the male-dominated industry like property and construction, were there some difficulties to let your voice be heard or question on your expertise or experience, and how did you overcome that?
For me, it wasn't really about whether it was more male-dominated. I think it was more like, I look very young, so it's a lot about walking into a room and people thinking, hey, what does she know? She's a young individual, very inexperienced in the property industry. What is she going to bring to the table? But for me, I treat it as, okay, that's a viewpoint. I don't attach any emotions to it. It's just more about, okay, I do what I need to do with the belief that I have, and I power through. I find people who share the same belief as me. So really, are you excited to do something different? And that's the belief, and I go in with that passion. And and I think in some ways I'm grateful actually, and I have to say actually maybe I'm extremely lucky as well, to be able to find people who would actually take that chance on me, right? For example, for A. Conley, we have Kempinski, Steve, Kelly, all these people who are veterans in what they do. And when I went up to them and I said, look, I really love what you guys do. I believe in what you guys do. I want to bring you to Malaysia. I want to set that stage because I believe everything that we do, we have to do it well. And if you are building a building and a building is going to last for 100 years, you better make sure that you do it well because it's going to stare at your face all the time, So for me, that's always what I think. I don't think about whether it's male or female or what other people really think. I think about, okay, this is my conviction and let's make it happen, Yeah.
Well said, well said. Last question to Shea Pin. Where do you find your strength from?
Yeah, my sister thinks I'm crazy. I don't give up, no matter what. I always think there's hope. There's someone nice out there, someone kind out there who will help me. Maybe I just need to make the call. Maybe I should just have a piece of cake and coffee, and then I will have better thoughts. You know, I think sometimes you just need the simplest thing. I've got two amazing daughters. They actually get me going. They bring me the coffee. They bring me the cake I love. So yeah, I think really it's just a little joy if you could just, let yourself relax a little bit from that whole burden of thoughts in life, right? Anything you do, everything you do, there's always too big a burden to worry about. But actually at the end of the day, there could be just a very simple answer. So sometimes we think too complicated and we worry too much, especially women. I think women worry too much. So over the years, I try to tell myself, okay, never mind, let's watch Netflix first, and then I forget about what I was worried about. Yeah. Yeah, and then you started to have little thoughts and little, ideas out of nowhere. And maybe a nice shower or, mask or something. Really, I think just take care of yourself in your little way. It doesn't have to be big way. People always say, oh, but I know I'm struggling, I'm poor, I'm nothing to enjoy. It's not true, really. Even a date array is a great enjoyment for me. And I love little conversation, Heidi and I are like so far apart in terms of age, our vision, our conviction, everything so far apart. But we somehow stumble upon each other, we admire each other, and I always tell her, yeah, what you're doing is impossible. I cannot do it. Impossible. Then she just told me just now what I do is impossible to her. So I think all these little conversations will spark a lot of joy and a lot of confidence. So I think the more you work on it, the more you will get, the nicer the people come to you. And if they're not nice, never mind, just bye-bye. That's it. It's actually very simple, but I think we need that. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, ladies. It was a pleasure having you impart your wonderful knowledge to us. Can we have a big round of applause for these amazing women? Joanne Kua, Heidy Quah, and Soo Shea Pin. Wonderful panel today. And ladies and gentlemen, please continue to enjoy tea, eat, drink, be merry. And we have a photographer as well who are taking photos. So please don't forget to tag at 8 Conley on Instagram and at KSK Land. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much.